Hello, good evening, friends. My name is Amish Sharma, and I welcome you, all of you, on our 17th day of our series of Words of Wisdom. And the speaker for today is Udit Sen, and we are here with yet another interesting topic. It's called Introduction to Vue.js. So, a short intro about Udit. So, he's a computer science undergraduate from Acropolis Institutions. He's a core team member of GDG Cloud Indoor, and currently he's a front-end developer in CYWARE Labs. So, Udit, first of all, the whole team of Code Warriors, we're really thankful to you that you've invested your time here, and we are all excited for the session. So, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. So, good evening, everyone, and I'm Udit. And as Amit mentioned, I'm a front-end developer at CyWARE Labs. I have been working at Vue.js for around 6 to 8 months, and it's very easy to learn. So, it will be a fun time interacting with you guys. So, let me just start sharing my screens. Let's start with you. You guys can see my screen, right? Okay, so let's start with Vue. If you guys know, Vue was created by Ivan Yu. Ivan Yu was working as a in Google as a, creative technologist, and he was working at Vue as a side project of his. He started developing it in early 2013, and when he got a passion for it and started developing it, and with time he created Vue into something which we already all know about today. And from 2016, he has left Google and is working full time on Vue.js framework. So how Vue started? Like as I mentioned, it started in late 2013. The first release was in Feb 2014, and since after then there have been a lot of upgrades, a lot of updates, and a huge community of Vue developers are already working upon it. The most stable release, the latest release is version 3.0.2, and which just got released like around 10 to 15 days ago. So, but today we'll be going up with what is Vue 2 and why Vue. Like, what are the advantages of it? There are already so many frameworks out there. Like, there is Angular, there's React, and so many other. Like, Angular and React are like the most famous ones. So, but why Vue in comparison to them? So, the few basic advantages of Vue could be like Vue is very small in size. Uh, Size does not matter much, but while we are working on a front end development, all the code executions are to be done on the client side. So it does matter what is the size of the code, how fast the code executes, and like all those things. Another thing about Vue is it's very easy to understand and develop applications. While Ivan Yu was creating Vue, his major focus was how can I make a framework which is very easy for people to understand. They do not need to invest much of their time while learning about it, and everything. So Vue is very simple to integrate. It does not require much efforts while integrating it with other frameworks. Another good thing about Vue is we can integrate it with other frameworks. Like if you are already having a project which is developed on Angular, then you can, and you want to switch to Vue, you can switch easily to Vue with simple integrations. Another good thing about Vue is like the developer community of Vue is very vast. These people are working very heavily on it. They bring up new innovations. The community is very good, and the documentation is so detailed that if you want to start learning Vue, you do not need to go anywhere. The documentation is like very good for it. Flexible. Vue is very flexible as like all these advantages which you are talking about. The major goal of Vue is that you do not need to focus much on the learning. If you start learning Vue today, you can start implementing it by tomorrow. It's so easy to learn. Now coming to what Vue actually like, how does it work? It's a progressive framework. Like you can start building small things, and eventually you don't need to start by a big focus and everything. You can start building a small component, and you can mix them together to something which is actually good. Now, Vue is component oriented. You can you can destructure your files into small components, You do not need to write all the codes at the same place. You can write small chunk here, small chunk there, and you can combine them to make the whole page look good. The major focus while Ivan Yu was working on Vue was to mix what is good in React, what is good in Angular, to combine them and make it as easy as possible. And that's where he started with Vue. Like, coming to the small size of Vue, this is a comparison about how React, Angular, Vue, and other comparisons are there. Like this, difference does not look much. Like there's not much difference in them, but while we talk about big sizes when the whole module is completed, these sizes do matter a lot. So as we can see, Vuejs, like of all of them, Vuejs is of the smallest in size, so it's very flexible to use Vue. And Vue, like they are very easy to understand and develop. Like you do not need to focus on how do I write the code. There's a template code for writing the HTML. There's a script tag for writing the scripts, like all the JavaScripts, and there's a style tag to write all the stylings of the Vue component. Again, coming to the detailed documentation, you can definitely find them on the Vue.js, and they are very easy to go, and they're very easy to learn. You can, even if you start learning it today, then within a week you will be very fluent with Vue. Now flexibility. So we can write templates in an HTML file. We can use JSX. We can use TypeScript. We can use ECMAScripts, like the upcoming versions of ECMAScript. So Vue developers are working very hard so that Vue supports everything which is new in the market. And this is one of the things which makes it easy for React developers and Angular developers and other framework developers to switch to Vue, because while we come to new, it seems very easy. You do not feel like there's just something new in it. You feel like, oh, I've already worked upon this. Oh, I've already worked upon this. And yes, I know how to do this. And that's one of the beauty of Vue, which makes it very popular in nowadays. Like if we go to GitHub repositories, and Vue definitely has the most stars in comparison to all the frameworks. One of the reasons is Vue is new, but another reason is Vue is very easy to use. Now, ecosystem for Vue. So these are all the libraries, modules which Vue developers are currently working upon, so that Vue can be very easy to use. Like Vue router can be used for single page application routings, right? And Vuex for large scale state management. And when we come to other frameworks, that we have to depend on other third party modules, but Vue has a complete ecosystem where we do not need to depend on any third party libraries or anything, so that everything what we are working upon, we can find them in the same ecosystem. These are some of the like libraries which Vue developers are working upon, where which makes it very easy for us to work upon Vue, to learn Vue, and to develop applications with it. Vue is not only used in like frameworks and like developing websites and all. Vue can also be used with native script and Wix to create native apps, cross-platform UIs, and like to develop mobile apps and all. Again, Vue is also used for server-side rendering. If you guys are familiar with React, if you worked upon React, then as there is Next in React, which helps in server-side rendering for React applications, we have got Nux in Vue, which helps in server-side rendering for Vue. It makes it easy for SEO, developing SEO applications. It helps businesses to like grow and provide enough information for their users. Now, who actually are using it? Like if you guys are working in uh, organization or something, you might be using GitLab for your repositories and everything. So GitLab is yes one of the biggest companies who's using Vue. Then there we have got NativeScript, we have got Wix, we have got Baidu, and there are multiple more companies which are using Vue. Even the small startups which are working right now, they prefer to use Vue because Vue is very easy to learn. They do not need to invest much of their time to start their developers with something new. So yes, how Vue works. So Vue mostly works on model view, view model. So model is basically the business logic and data where we store the data, and view is how we present the data. So Vue works upon the view model, which is how they combine the presentation and the logic together. Model is just the flow of our all the logics and everything, and view is how we present it. So that's how Vue works upon MVVM model. Vue can be destructured into various components. Components makes it easy for us to keep a track of our code, how to keep one part of the code together, not club everything into the same file. It's make them easy to manage. So Vue files can be divided into various components. Components are nothing but small Vue instances which can be clubbed together to make a whole page. Now, everything around us have a life cycle. Life cycle, how they get created, how they work upon, how they live through, and eventually they destroy. So every Vue component has a life cycle as well. It starts with before create, before the object is initialized, before our data is initialized. The before create method is being called. It observe everything. It initialize events, it initializes data, and then the created method is called. After that, the whole template is being compiled, and after that, it is mounted to the DOM. After the DOM has been mounted and it's on our page, so we make some updations to it. It gets updated, then some data changes, then another updations occur, then another data changes, then another updation occurs, and it loops through this cycle again and again. The DOM gets re-rendered, some data gets updated more, the data re-renders, and it goes through. And once the component is being used and its work is done, uh, you remove all the watchers, all the datas and everything, and it gets destroyed finally. Now, reactivity about you, how actually this component works. So, as we know that like every framework like has a DOM, and this view works upon the virtual DOM tree. Whenever a component is rendered, whenever some data is changed, so Vue has some getters and setters. Getters get the data. Setters calls a watcher. Watchers are basically properties and methods which check whenever an object or a data property is being changed. So as though that data is changed, uh, the watcher triggers a re-render. The component renders the whole function. The virtual DOM tree is updated completely, and as soon as the virtual DOM tree is completed, the diff method is being called and it updates all those things on our pages, and our pages are updated. Only those places are updated which are actually changed instead of loading the whole page. This makes this framework, the Vue framework, very fast, and so it does not take much time to reload. Even when small data is changed, that small part is being re-rendered and not the whole document. Now, what is component structure for a Vue component? So we first start with a name. Like every component is a name to uniquely identify it. Like whenever we are gonna use it in the file, so this is the name, we'll go with it. Then mixins. So mixins are like whenever we are working, mixins work as like a piece of code which I'm gonna use in one component, and the same piece of code if I'm gonna use it in another component. So instead of rewriting it, Vue provides us some, like these are called mixins. We provide us mixins so that we can share them. We can use the same chunk of code to be used again and again in different components. Now, extends. So extends work as like basically the basic meaning of extend is to derive something. So the same is with what goes here. Like when we have already have a component and we want to use that component, and we want to inherit that component in some way, that we want to use some properties of it. So that's how we use extends. Like extends compose new components which are like derived from some old components. Props. Now, some when the data is being passed from one component to another component, there are different methods, different types where the component passes data to another component. Like so, props, when a parent component passes some data to the child component, that's how we pass data through props. Now, data is something which is this property of that very component, the data of that own component. Computed properties are, whenever we require to do some heavy computation on data properties, so we use computed components. We use them when we want to use another different component from another different file into this component, into the HTML for this component, then we go with components. Watcher watchers, like as you talked about watchers, so the main purpose of watchers is to watch every variable which we write in them. like whenever that updations on that variable occurs and we need to execute something, like whenever I have a first name, so whenever I change the first name, I need to change my full name as well. So that's where I'll use watches. And methods, so our click events, our requests, our anything like functions, basically the functions. So that's where the methods are used, where we write our functions. So this is us, like how simple a component structure looks like. You do not need to worry about much. You just need to use whatever which like you need right now and ignore the others. And this makes Vue very easy because everything has got a different structure to it. And these are the component life cycles which we talked about earlier, which can be used in a component structure as well. Each method are called at their respective times. Moving ahead, interpolations. So how actually Vue is used. Firstly, this is the mustache structure where we can, if this is a data variable, like I have a message variable in my data and I want it to be shown on the HTML. Like we'll continue with this on more on when we'll be making a demo. So like if I want to use it in the HTML, so I'll just use a mustache structure and this will automatically get rendered in the HTML. Then we can bind some attributes. We are that there are different things which you can do. If I want some dynamic ID to my div, like I do not want it to be static, I want the dynamic ID to come from my code, from my JavaScript, then I can easily use vbind colon id and give it the variable name which I want to use. If I want to disable a button, I can just bind it to a value which is button disabled, and like it will disable the button. So there are different attributes which can be used in Vue, which makes it very easy. Like you do not need to write a lot of code. We just need to write this chunk of code and it will do all the work for us. We can also use JavaScript expressions in Vue. Like we do not need to calculate them. Otherwise, we just need mustache structure and we'll just write them there and it will do the calculations for us. It will render the piece which we need to render and we do not need to worry much about it. Now, what vbinds are? So, whenever we need to bind the template HTML to something which is there in our data, which is there in our props, like which is basically in our script, so we use vbind. And now V on are nothing but they are like events. Whenever something happens, like as the word says V on, whenever click events on. So, what do I need to do on a click event? So, I'll call a method there. Now, an easy way to write vbind is to use colon. An easy way to write von is to use at the rate. Vue understands how it works and make proper working of them. And coming to modifiers, so modifiers are something like we are working on an event, like there's a click, but what kind of click event? It could be an enter, it could be a key up, it could be a key down. So if we want to modify it, we want to specify what actually is being done, we can use modifiers with it. Now coming to what are computed properties and watches. These are one of the most useful stuffs that Vue provides because we sometimes need to do heavy computations. We sometimes need to check a property, keep an eye on it. What whenever it renders, we need to do something. Whenever something changes, we need to do something on it. So watches. So like there's a property, there's a data element, first name foo, and I have a last name bar, and I have a full name. So whenever first name changes, I'll need to change the full name, and whenever the last name changes, I'll need to change the full name again. So like I'll make a watcher with first name, which is this property, and I'll keep on the Vue will keep on watching it for me, and whenever a value will be provided for it, it will update the full name for me and change it. And similarly, it will do for the last name as well. Like whenever the last name, it will keep on watching the last name, and whenever a value will be provided for the last name, it will update the full name for me. Like I won't have to do any work for it. We will do it for me. Now coming to what are computed properties. Like again, if we are using full name here, and like I do not have a property full name, so I can actually do that. I can use first name and first name plus last name here, but this is just a small code of structure. Like if you want to do a lot of computations, I cannot write them all here. It will My template code would not look good, so I'll have to do them somewhere else. I can even use methods for them, but complete properties render faster than methods, and methods can return something else as well. So I'll make a computed property there, which is full name. It will return me the first name plus the last name. So computed properties provide faster computations in very less time. Now, if I need to get this property, but what if I need to set it? Then computed properties just provide us with getters and setters. Like if I want to get it, if I'm just using it, then it will call this getter as the getters and setters which we have already in other languages. These are very similar to them. It will, when we call it getter, it will return us the first name. And if while setting it, we need to perform some operations and some modifications as well. Like if I am providing the full name, I want to change the first name and last name as well. So I'll just do this computation here instead of writing it somewhere else. So this is what computed getters and setters does for us. Now moving ahead, how we can bind HTML classes with Vue. Now we just talked about binding. Like binding is when we are using a Vue something and we need to bind it to one of the variables in our which is in our data. Now, like I need to provide an active class to a variable to a div where I'll provide it only when isActive is true. So what I will do is I'll bind classes, I'll bind class, I can bind styles, I can bind a lot of uh, tags for like a lot of attributes for every tag of HTML, and Vue will do all the work for me. We will provide in an active class while the isActive is true, and it will automatically remove the active class as soon as the isActive goes false. So this is how we can bind HTML classes. We can do the similar things with uh, HTML styles and other things. Now, conditional rendering. Now, this there are some scenarios where we need to render something and we need to hide something. So Vue makes it very easy to use if directives. If we are using if, we just need to give a condition there. If that condition is true, this part will render. Like it's basically a if else statement for us. So Vue does all the handling. We do not need to write much for that, and it will automatically render the required part here. Vue also allows us to use loops. So if I have got a list of 100 elements, I'll not go on writing all like li for everything. Like there are some editors, there are some extensions which makes it very easy for us to do that. But what if that changes? So instead of statically coding it, I can just use a v for directive, dynamically loop over it, and Vue will do all the work for me. We will pick that item, we will check whatever the message is, and we will render it automatically. Now, what are methods? So methods, like basically they are just some functions. Whenever we need to do something, so we'll call a method. We need to get something from the backend, we'll call a method. We need to open a drawer, we'll call a method. So how do they work? Now I've just made a button, and on I'll make a v on it. Like as soon as I click on that button, it will call a method greet, and whatever I need to be do, like I can write it here, and everything will occur. So Vue, as soon as I click on it, we will call this method greet, and it will execute all the code for me. Moving ahead. Now Vue works upon two-way bindings. So if I have an input box and I'm writing something, so it will automatically get updated everywhere I'm using the message. Like if I have modeled, like this is how two-way binding works. We can v-model any variable to anything, and as soon as we update this message, it will update everywhere I'm using this message keyword. So that's how two-way binding works for Vue. Now the key modifiers. So as we talked about that, like if we want to stop propagation, we can use click.stop. If we want to prevent submit for the form, we can just add submit.prevent. So these are event modifiers and these are key modifiers. So they will do the work. We do not need to write, we do not need to handle the event on ourselves. Vue will do for us. If we are going to do input key up dot enter, so whenever we press the key enter, it will execute the submit, with whatever the code we have written in the submit method. So Vue will execute that for us. Now let's get on and make a to-do list. We'll start with do we install a how do we install Vue. So Vue can be easily installed with npm install at Vue CLI. And since I already have it installed in my machine, so I'll just skip to that part and let's just create a to-do app. We'll just wait for a few seconds. And now Vue provides us with uh, some presets where we can use them. So we can just have a look at that. We can, if you want to use Babel, if you want to use TypeScript, if you want to use progressive web apps, if you want to use router, router is for routing of single web applications. If you want to use Vuex for state management, if we want some CSS preprocessors like uh, less SAS, CSS, and all. If we want linter and formatters, if we want to enable unit testing and all, so we can easily select them from here and go on with it. So like since we do not require them, we just select one of the presets. We just select this. Now we can save them in their dedicated config files or in package.json. Like it does not make much of a difference. And if we want to save this for another time, like we are used to making newer projects every time, so we can just go on with it so that the next time we do not have to go and select them all. And we'll just create a to-do app. It does take time, but we use very fast. I will shift to that repository and we'll start our development server. Okay. I just mistyped it. And we'll also open it in a code editor. So this is how the view starts with our basic code. We just go to our to-do app. We This is how the structure for a Vue app looks like. We have got an app man file. We have got this main file where we import Vue, where we import our components, and this is how Vue renders it on our HTML, which is this div ID. So Vue will pick everything and render it on this component, this div, and will do all the work for us. We All we need to do is start with this app component. So there is this hello world. This is the basic code structure which we will give to us. And since we do not require it right now, we'll just go on to delete it and remove everything. We have to remove this. So since we'll just start with a to-do app. What does it look like? Okay, so we'll start making a to-do app now. I'll just copy some CSS so that it does look good. CSS so that our to-do app does not look bad enough and can just go on with it. Oh, okay, so first of all, we'll give it an h1. We'll give it a class, which will be our title. Today, this is a basic HTML structure, which we won't be meaning much. This will be our input box, where we'll be typing the to do component for whatever the item which we need to add, and we'll just put an input box here. Type text. We'll just give it a class. So that it looks good. This okay. Now just increase the font a bit. Now we'll first start with data. Now how does data work? We'll just give it a new item here, and we'll give it an empty string, and we'll try and display new item here. If you go here, it's the to-do app, and like nothing is displayed because we have not modeled this input with anything. So what we'll do next is we'll model this with new item. Now let me just go on. I can actually see it here. Like whatever I'll type here, it will automatically get reflected here because I've modeled it with a new item. It's two-way binding, so it will get reflected here. Now we'll just add a button. So that you can click on it and add it to, and we'll just edit here. And now we'll need to add some methods so that whenever we click on this button, we can call a method. So we'll click on V on event, and we'll just write add item here. What we'll do with this is we'll write the method here, and we'll just console log new item for right now. Now, whenever we are using methods, so Vue is basically every component is just a like object structure. So if we need to reference variables which are present in data or which are present in computed properties or anything, we'll need to use this to use them. Okay, so we'll just go here again and we'll check if it's working good or not. Okay, I'm fetching some errors. Am I not written? No. Okay, maybe I have not loaded it. Okay, I might have misspelled methods. We'll just get it again. I'll add it and console logs it for me. I'll just remove this because you do not need it anymore. So the method works for us right now, but this is not what we need to do. We need to go ahead, and what we'll do is we'll make another file where we'll be writing the logic for our to-do list. Now, if we can use some extensions, and there's an extension on which I'm using which writes me the boilerplate code for Vue, and it's just does this that it like I do not need to write everything. It just gives me a template and export and everything. So I just need to start writing my code now. I'll make a div. I'll make a UL, and now coming back. Firstly, what we need is we need a list where we'll keep everything that a to-do list will have. So what we'll do is we'll create another data property here. We'll just create a list. We'll give it a message. Message will be, anything to do like creating web app. Is it done or not? So no, it's not done. And we'll just copy paste this. We'll add something else. Done. Just it's done. So we'll keep a list here and we'll be using it furthermore. So like we'll be showing this list here in this component. So we'll give it the name to-do list. We'll give it the class to-do list so that it goes with our CSS. And now for every CSS, like every list item, what we'll do is instead of putting it all here, we'll go ahead and make another component for it. We'll just make another component for it where we'll be storing all the, each and the individual entity for a to-do list. So it will be an li. We'll give it a class again. This. Now this to-do list. So we'll start integrating them together a bit. So now firstly, if you want to use another component, we'll need to import it to the list from. Now while we are importing something, so at the rate works as for the source directory, this directory. So I need to import it from the source directory, from components, and the code from to-do list. Now, every time I'm importing a component and I need Vue to know that it is a component, I'll need to write it in here so that Vue knows it is a component which I'm going to be using. Now we'll go ahead and use this to-do list. We have not written much code for it, so it won't reflect right now, but we'll just see how it goes ahead. Now there are two ways I can either write this way directly. I can either write this way directly, or I can go ahead and write in this case. So I'll just go ahead. Now this list. So I do not need to show this list here. I need this component to show that list. So what I will do is I'll pass it a prop. The props are passed like this. I'll make a variable of my own list and I'll bind it with list from this place. Like this list is binded to this. Now if I'm passing a prop to this to-do list component, I'll need to go ahead and add here that I'm getting some props and it is a list. So like I need to tell it that this is the props which I'll be getting. So you'll have to do something with it. Now what I'll do is I'll need this component in here. So I'll just go to the list item from, again it's in source components and to the list item. Again I need Vue to know that I'm going to be using it as a components. So I'll just write it here, and since I'm writing it here, I'll just go and use it here. Now what I need to do with this to-do list item, I do not need to pass the whole list for it. So if you remember, we talked about v-for. So what we'll be doing is we'll be making it loop over every item in the list. So We'll just write the v for item in list. Now, whenever we use v for, so we need the view to understand that everything is different than the other. So we do need to bind them with something. We need to provide a key. But item, like as we see here, as we saw here, that creating web app, so there can be two messages with same thing. This is done can be two. So how does view identify? So we have another thing for, while we are iterating in a list, we can ask for an index. So we'll just ask for the index as well, and we'll bind the key to index. So this will do the work for us. It will uniquely identify every to-do list item, and it will just go for it. Now we need to provide this item, all these items, to this to-do list component. So what we'll do, we'll just bind it. We'll provide it as a prop to the inner component. Like every item here, it will be accessible to now when we do it this way, like there are two ways we are doing. Once we are giving a variable name, and like we are binding it to a variable name, and here we are not binding it to any variable name, we are just writing v bind equals item. So this inner component, it will have the props as message and is done, which are nothing but the keys here. Each object will be passed, and this inner component will have them all. Now we need to show this is messaging is done here. So we'll just make a p tag, and we'll use mixture structure. We'll just write the message here. We'll just write the message here. Now let's take a look if it's working or not. So yes, I'll go on, add something. Will it work? No, because we haven't written the code yet. So let's go ahead and write the code for it. Now every time we are adding an item, what we need to do is we need to push it to this list. Like here, what we need to do is we have got new item already. We need to empty this new item so that we can add another item there and go ahead. So what we'll do is we'll just comment this out. We'll pick up this list because since it's a data, since it is in data, we'll have to reference it with this. So we'll just push, and we'll give the messages this dot new item, and like since you're creating it right now, we'll just keep is done as false, and we'll also need to empty this dot new item, because if we won't do that, then it will always be there. Like you can see that. I'll just go on, I'll add something, it will always be there. So if I'm adding it, I'll need to empty it now. So what I'll do is I'll just empty this now. Now another, yes, so now I'll just go this, it will empty it for me, and so this to-do list is working. It's working good now. So now we just need not to show this only. What we can do is we'll make some modifications to it. Like what if I've completed this? What if I want to remove it? How will I do that? So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So we'll just add an input checkbox. We'll remove this, not require it right now. And like we'll bind the check property to what we are getting here. Is it done or is it not? If it's done, it will be checked. If it's not, it won't be checked. And we'll just give it a class as well. We'll like what we talked about. If it's done, we'll do something. If it's not done, we'll do something else. So we'll just bind a class here. We'll give the class as completed, and completed will be appended. If is done is true, completed will be removed if is done is false. Let's see how does it work. So like I've written the code for completed. So what happens is if I'm here, if I'll just remove this, okay, I have not written the code for it, so it won't work right now. But if it is ticked, the creating web app 2, it has a class completed. And if you go here, it does not have a class completed. So we'll just implement this modification and we'll see how does it work more clearly. But if it is ticked, so I've binded this class completed, and like let's just move ahead and see how we can achieve everything. And so what we'll do is this is a component, this is the child component, this is the child component. We are making some modifications here and we need that to be reflected here. Like so one way we are doing it, like we are if we are going in the child hierarchy, we are adding something here and we're making some changes to the list, then the list is being passed as a prop, then that item from the list is being passed as a prop here, but that's from a parent to a child. What if we need to do it backwards? So backward can be done like if we want to send data from a child to a parent, then we can use emit. Now what we will do is if this changes, then we'll just emit a toggle property. Toggle event, we'll just emit a toggle event that yeah, something changes occurred. Now how do we know that, like how will this component know that something has happened in a child component? Like how this to-do list component will know that something has happened in a to-do list item component, then we'll be listening that event. So as we are doing here, if something changes in an input tag, this change will listen and it will perform some action. So similarly, when a toggle will occur, what do we need to do? We need to do something. So what we'll do is we won't do be like we do not need to do anything here. What we'll do is we'll do the same thing. We'll emit it to the outer component. We'll ask this component to perform that action. So we'll again emit it from here to the parent component. We'll just emit it to the again similarly this to-do list has emitted an event. So we'll listen that event here, and on listening it, we will remove the item. No, we'll complete the item. So if this event has occurred, we will complete the item. Now we'll need to write the code for this. But we just do not need to complete the item. What if I click on it and what if I click on it again? So we'll just toggle the state for it. We'll just call it as toggle and we'll toggle it. Now how do we toggle it? We just need to pick this list and need to make some modifications to it. So we'll pick up the list and yeah, so we'll pick up the list and we need to make some changes to this key, like how will we exactly know which key we need to make modifications to. Now coming back to it, we're just emitting toggle from here, but there are many, like it is a v4. So there are like two items in the list, there are going to be three items, there will be four items. So how will we know which item to make some changes to? So what we'll do is we'll just not emit an event, we'll emit what data with the event. Like so what data we need to make modifications to. We need to make modifications on item, but like if it's an array, we can uniquely identify it with an index. So we'll just emit property index with it. Now this toggle will catch that it knows that something has been passed, and this toggle will have a property coming in which will be a value which will be nothing but an index. So we'll make changes to this index. So we need to go to that index, and For that index, we need to toggle this isDone property. Now, thing with Vue is if we just change it directly, it might reflect, but if it's an object structure, it might not reflect as well. So we provide us with a method $set, which makes it easy for us to make modifications to objects and arrays. So we'll just pick where we want to make changes, what property do we need to change, and what do we need to do with it. So we'll just pick this list. Will say we need to change isDone property, and what do we need to do? Whatever it was earlier, we need to just revert it back. So we'll take that list, same thing, and we'll just add a note here so that it gets reflected. Now let's just see if it works or not. If I just go, yeah, it works good for us. So if I just click on it, it will do this. If I add something, I click on it again, I add another object, I remove this, I complete this. Now let's just quickly add another feature to a to-do app. We'll go on to remove an item. How do we remove an item? So we'll just add another button here. We'll add a class to it, and we'll just write delete. Now, if whenever I click this delete button, I need the outer component to know that something has happened. So again, we'll emit an action on the click of the button. We'll say delete or anything, and we'll just emit this action outside. Now, this component will catch that a delete event has been emitted, and it should tell the outer component that yeah, you need to delete this index from there. So we'll again pass the index because we want the outer component to know which index needs to be deleted, and then we'll go to the app and we'll just uh, catch it again here that at delete we need to delete an item. So like since delete is a keyword, so we should not try and use it. We'll just call it remove, and there we go. We'll write another method remove, which will catch an index, and we'll just remove it from the list. But yes, this the work for this task has been done. Let's just remove it. So let's just check if it works good for us. Yes, I've added an option. I'll go on, delete it. I've added another option. I'll complete it. It's incomplete yet. So this is how we can use, you know, basic structures and basic functionalities of views to create something. And it goes the same while you're working on something bigger. We just need to work on this. We just need to use the same structures. We just need to use the same logic, and we'll eventually build on something big as well. Now this is how we can make a Vue app. Now let's move ahead. What is Vuex? So we talked earlier about what is Vue router, and we also talked about what is Vuex. So Vuex is nothing but like as we talked about right now. If we were passing a like structure, a code, a property from this point to this point to this point. But what if like it was a linear flow from here, and while we are emitting it, it was a linear flow again, like parent, child, 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 parent, parent. What if it's not as simple as it looks like right now? What if the structure is different? So that's where Vuex come in. Vuex is a state management pattern. Like all the data is stored in a state in a store, which where we all the components can use it. And if a component is made, if component is requested some data, the data is available for it. The component can make some modifications to the data, and at the same time, that data is also available for another component. So how the flow works. So every Vue component, it dispatch an action. The action performs all the methods which are needed to be performed, like requesting data from the backend, or fetching data from the local storage, or performing any computation. So it commits the data to the mutations. Mutations occur. The mutation make changes to the state. The state is where all the data is stored, and as the state gets updated, the data is available for all the Vue components to be used. The components re-render automatically. Now, how the shared state works. So, like as we talked about, this is a component. It There's a shared state. Like this is a store where all the data is stored. This component can use it. It can notify actions. The store will make some modifications. The data is available for everybody to be used. So this is how Vuex helps in easy flow of data from various components which are located at various places, and we do not need to pass a prop emit actions with while we are working on with a shared state. Now coming to dev tools. So like if we are working or if you're a developer and you might come across a lot of things that I need to change this, so I can just quickly go here. I can make some changes and I can easily test it from here. So Chrome developer tools are very easy for a developer to work upon. So similarly, what Vue developers has done is they have provided a Vue dev tools. Like we'll need to go on and check on it. So I'll just do a Google search for it. We'll just add them Chrome and we'll just see how Vue DevTools can make it easy for us to work. Let's reload our browser. Okay, it's not showing up here. Let's reopen it. Okay, so it does not show up here. Yeah, here it is. So these are app component, these are to-do list component, and these are our to-do list items. So how does DevTools help us? So if we go to here, it will show us. If we go to here, so it will show us what are the data properties here. If we make modifications here, they'll all be reflected here. They'll show us whatever is there. If we go to the to-do list item, it will show us what props are being like, what props this component is receiving, and everything. And again here, so this is how Vue DevTools helps us. So again, if we just go on here and I make this, so Vue DevTools will also help me with this as well. If I go that this to-do list item is emitted an event toggle, there was this payload for it. This is the component which emitted it, what was the type of it, what was the name for it. So while we are working on complex structures, Vue DevTools makes it very easy for us to keep a flow of it, to see all the data here. It helps us with router, it helps us with Vuex, and everything which we currently work upon Vue. So that's how Vue DevTools help us. Yep. So thank you guys. Like let's see if you have any questions. We can take them now. Yeah. Amit. So we can.
Yeah, guys, if you have some question, you can ask. You can put in the comment section, and we'll pick the questions.
Thank.
Yeah, I don't think so that we have any questions. Okay, one question, Udit, I could see one question that how about the version changes or migrations handled? So,
Like, are you so that if you can provide more info about that question about like what version changes are you talking about? Version changes from Vue 2 to Vue 3. So
actually,
Vue
it
3 is
is.
like they have developed.
Yeah, yeah, please go.
Okay. So Vue has Vue 3. There are a lot of major changes upcoming in Vue 3. The community has already started working upon it. A lot of changes has been made. Vuex has they've stopped using Vuex and Vue routers. So it's easy to start with Vue 2. You get a basic hold of it, and so Yeah, that's how migrations have been handled right now.
Uh, uh, Thanks, Sumit. I don't think so. We have any other questions. So thank you,
Okay.
Sumit. Yeah, for I could see your
Right.
efforts and you have explained the code each and every line. So I'm sure that most of the people must have got benefited from it. So thank you. And guys, before we end this session, uh, one of our moderator will be putting the link in the comment, or you can find the link in the description. So it will redirect it towards a quiz. So if you want the certificate or to be eligible for the certificate, you can go onto the link and attempt the questions. Once you complete the question, actually the questions will be based on the session which is just completed. So attempt the quiz, and then you'll be getting the certificate. So, okay. Thank you, Udit, for coming and investing your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Code Warriors.
Yeah. So, guys, just redirect it to the link which has been sent, which is commented by one of our moderators. You can go on and attempt the quiz. And okay, don't forget on 19th and 20 we'll be organizing the hackathon. So, a virtual hackathon. So, do participate in it. Till then, goodbye.